Okay, so one of the topics that I found really difficult for this course actually came like right at this last exam for exam 3, and that was kind of deciding between what mechanism is going to happen, be that like E1, Sn1, E2, Sn2. So certain parts of it were, I won't say easy, but pretty basic. So obviously part of it is just memorization, and so you can make lists like this and drill into your head that E1 prefers this, Sn2 is going to prefer this, and that went all right at first, but it really didn't help me out when I got to actually seeing a potential reaction and trying to figure out what's going to predominate product-wise, what's going to happen mechanistically. So I was really overwhelmed. I kept kind of trying this approach. I kept just trying to grind in the memorization of what they preferred, and it just wasn't really helping me to like figure out what's actually gonna be the most affected in a reaction. And so I kind of stepped back for a little bit, and I actually decided I was going to try a totally new approach, and I just started doing more practice problems to see like patterns, and that turned out to be a lot more helpful, but I still found it quite hard, so I like stepped back kind of completely from it, and I decided I'm going to move on for a little bit, and I kind of moved on to studying like synthesis options. And that was actually the most helpful. So by kind of just like moving on and doing that, I started to see more of those reactions and kind of see the patterns that formed. And that just seemed a lot more helpful to me in kind of figuring out what's generally going to happen for a given reaction. So an example to kind of show, this is something that at the start of not only like the unit, but even studying for the exam, I would have found this totally perplexing. But now there's a pretty clear winner as to what mechanism is going to happen. So as far as kind of E1, Sn1, that's something I probably could have ruled out pretty early on as like a first step. As long as I'd memorized that DMF was an aprotic solvent, and I memorized that E1, Sn1 don't really like aprotic solvents, pretty early on I'd probably say, no. And there's really nothing about the substitution of this carbon to say that it has to be those two. So fairly decent guess, but early on I would have done that really unconfidently, and that would have resulted in me just like being really overwhelmed and then not really knowing what to do next. Although the next step isn't really too difficult to look at this and see that you've got a hot, pretty darn strong base, so this is going to favor E2. But definitely at the start, I wouldn't have been able to kind of take those two separate steps to realize that. So along with this kind of train that I found hard, I really did not find synthesis too easy. So mechanisms I did find quite easy. Mechanisms always seemed really natural to me. I didn't really have to practice them too much. It just seemed easy to know kind of where electrons were going to move when kind of laid out for you. But deciding on reactants for synthesis was difficult in the same exact way that this was. And so I could memorize what, for example, if I saw BH3 and some H2O, I would know that's going to be hydroboration. You're going to form the enantiomer carbon club alcohol from an alkene. But put something in front of me where that might be a step I want to take, and I would kind of freeze up. I wouldn't really know what my next step I wanted to take was, and even if I did figure out that next step, I would be kind of confused again as to what I wanted to use to do it. So I used kind of a similar strategy. I just did a lot of practice problems and started to see patterns, and that was really helpful. And then the last thing that I found difficult, there's a little bit less to talk about. This is more of a Chem 1, Chem 2 thing, but so I did fairly well in those classes, but my acid-base knowledge was never too great, and I definitely felt that coming into these topics. So early on, I just did not have the natural instinct to look at a base and know kind of the general strength of it. And so going back and just kind of doing acid-base review was obviously helpful for that. But again, more than that, just doing more problems, like finding online sources with like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 problems, and going through them and seeing the patterns of like how different reactants and solvents are gonna interact generally was what was really useful to me. And so this along with synthesis and then the acid-base stuff was something that I was super uncomfortable with when we first started, but through a lot of studying and kind of changing up how I looked at it, I'm actually really confident now post-exam. So thanks.